Welcome back to Community Conversations. I'm your host, Steve Mantis, and my guests today are Greg Snider and Eugene Lefrancois, both from the Thunder Bay and District Injured Workers Support Group. Welcome back, guys.
Once again, thanks for having me.
So today you wanted to talk about your platform for change, and you brought a copy in here. And I see the first paragraph really struck me. So I'm just going to read this out to give people a sense of what's being talked about here. It starts, justice for injured workers. Injured workers need rehabilitation system that recognizes the special difficulties they face as persons with disabilities in obtaining and maintaining employment. In Ontario, this rehabilitation system will seek to assist injured workers with both social integration and the attaining of suitable employment. It will be a system that fully compensates and supports those workers who have suffered a workplace injury or illness, assist such workers in returning to employment with dignity, and which aids in protecting all workers from injury or illness at work. To that end, the following document outlines how this result can be achieved. So this is something your group put together. For what end? Why are you saying what should be? What's your goal here?
Well, right now, the goal is to have a system that is fair to the workers, injured workers. Because right now, the system is totally out of whack or out of balance, or call it whatever you want, but it's broken. It is not working for the severely injured. Most injuries right now, well, there's a lot of injuries right now that there's no lost time. The board, the WSIB, is set up for that with no lost time injuries. When you get a severe injury, like the work around here is resources extraction, construction, that's where you get the big lost time. Those workers are falling through the safe of every net that's out there, and they end up on welfare. Well, if you get hurt at work, why do you have to end up on welfare? That should not happen. So that's one reason why we have the platform for change, because right now, as it stands, the system is broken.
So you kind of have it broken down into different components of the system. The first one here is the public and responsive system. Greg, tell me a little bit about that. What does that mean?
Well, the system has to be responsible. We want to see it universal, so everybody gets coverage. Right now that's well below what's happening. We want to see collective liability, so that everybody's putting into a central pot, much the same as Ontario Healthcare Plan works, where we all put into a central pot, and if something happens that some disaster strikes, then there's money there for that collective pot to help cover those costs, and that makes it more affordable. It means that businesses that are faced with a catastrophe and a loss of workers getting injured are able to still function. They're not going to go out of business because of one bad thing. So, but at the same time, the worker gets the compensation they need to get their life, and that's the salary that in compensation, but it's also retraining, medical costs. It's not about replacing salary solely, it's about compensating the worker for the loss of that injury. And we have to meet that full amount, that full cost. And collective liability allows us to do that. And it's also being public, so that we have some neutrality in dealing out that income and making sure that people get the exact money they need for the loss due to work.
So let me just explore this a little bit further. So the collective liability, you're saying it's like OHIP, where it's a payroll deduction from your employer for the most part, and employers all pay that same, whatever it is, 2%.
With this one being a little different in that the employer would be paying, because the employer is responsible for the workplace, and the injured worker is presumed to have already paid, in that their body has paid the cost, right? Whether it's in pain or whether it's in loss of abilities due to a disability. the workers paid, so that the employer has to pay their part of the cost.
And how does it work now in terms of that? How do the employers pay?
Well, the way it works now is the employers do pay, but there's several different schedules that exist, and depending what schedule you're in, you pay based. Usually, those are based on the kind of business you do, and other businesses aren't included. They're excluded from the WSIB program, and the government doesn't pay into the pot whatsoever because although their employees are covered by Workplace Safety Insurance Board, the government pays the cost of a worker who is injured and a slight administration cost. But outside of that, they don't pay into it. So they pay nothing into that central pot. And that's quite a large number of workers in Ontario. They're not paying in to this pot. Plus, not being universal, there's a large number of people that aren't paying into it or getting coverage out of it. All of which, the more people you are paying into this, the less harm there is on the business that has to compensate a worker.
So it sounds like a fairly complex system right now in terms of figuring out how much and who pays what, and your recommendation is make it simple, everybody pays the same.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, companies are paying money right now to try and keep themselves out of certain brackets and into other sections of the program. And, that's a huge amount of money on top that adds to the cost of applying workers' compensation. Keep it simple, keep the administration costs down, and the focus should be on compensating workers with injuries. It shouldn't be on how to avoid paying.
Because right now, there's with the system that we have now, there's claim suppression. No employer wants to admit that there's an injury in his employment. There's no injuries. So what they'll do is they'll coerce employees not to report. They'll pay them to count dots on a ceiling. They'll pay them to stay at home. They'll pay them to read a book because that means that there is no claim. They are still working. Is that right? No, that's wrong. Also, there is, if you do have the one premium for all employers, that would be the biggest thing is all employers, because right now, there are an awful lot of employers in Ontario who do not pay into WSIB, but yet who take advantage of everything that has to offer.
So it sounds like there's all these loopholes that employers can use to end up not paying that make the system more complicated. And you're trying to say, just simplify it and get rid of all that monkeying around. Do I have that right?
Oh, you have that right.
Well, please stay with us. We're going to be right back.